Hey guys, so it's fun to see you on a Monday night rather than Wednesday or Friday morning. I am excited to be able to share with you guys today. Yeah, just have a couple things on my heart that I want to quickly share with you guys, and nothing super enlightening or anything, but I want to share with you guys a quick story. This summer, I was just doing my thing, and I was hanging out with some people that I work with, and it was a good time. And for those of you that know me, sometimes I walk around with this face that makes me look super concerned and just super angry all the time. And I walk around with like crinkled eyebrows. And so people, typically when they see me the first time, they're like, hey, is everything okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? I'm like, yeah, fine, whatever. And I keep walking. But this girl that I work with this summer, she walked up to me and she goes, Hannah, every time I see you, you are just so joyful. I was like, what? Okay, no one's ever said that to me before. But it was almost this like sense of identity that she spoke over me, where she saw something that I wasn't even able to see myself. So then from that moment on, it's not like super enlightening or anything, but I've just felt this pressure to smile all the time. So if I see you and I'm like, hey, it's because I want you to tell me that I look very joyful. Yeah. So that's me. I did not help Lincoln write the Emancipation Proclamation. That was a dumb joke that I sent to Blake that I didn't know he would tell all of you. Anyway, thanks for laughing. Anyways, so I want to share with you guys a quick story about, it's one of my favorites in the Bible. It's a classic. This girl is really great. She's fantastic. She is one of my favorite people to read about, and it's the story of Hanna. Yeah. Yeah, it's fun, guys. It's fun. So for those of you that know, you can find Hannah's story at the beginning of 1 Samuel. A shame it's named after her son and not her, but she's the beginning of it. So 1 Samuel starts off basically talking about this guy. His name is Elkanah. Elkanah has two wives, Peninnah and Hanna. So Peninnah has some kids, which, back then is like what wives are for. And Hanna has none. And it's really frustrating to me to read about. I guess, to be honest, sometimes I find myself identifying a little bit more with Peninnah's attitude here. But the Bible literally says, and Peninnah used the fact that Hanna didn't have children to... Whoa. Peninnah used the fact that Hanna didn't have children to provoke her grievously, to irritate her because the Lord had closed her womb. Okay, first of all, you're sharing your husband with this guy, which is weird in general, and you're this woman who just really wants to have kids because society has said that that's all that you're good for. So you're like, okay, now I'm like side chick number one, and I don't have kids, and side chick number two? No, she might be the main chick. Has kids, and she's not even like, hey, it's okay, your time will come. She's like grievously irritating and provoking her. I don't know. She sounds like a real pain. That's the word I'll use. So anyways, Elkanah, he sounds like a pretty good husband. He goes up to Hanna and says, is it not enough that I love you? Why are you so sad that you don't have kids? Is my love not enough for you? And basically she's like, I really want kids. So she goes to the temple and she begins to pray and pray and pray and pray for a son. And she even tells God, hey, Lord, I promise you, if you hear the cry of your servant, if you do not ignore the cry of your servant and you give me a son, I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life. So she goes as far to say, I don't even need to have this kid for his entire life. I just want to birth him and give him right back to you, which, man, she wanted kids. Whew. Yeah, so she's praying so intensely. Sorry, I'm holding this really close to my face. She's praying this so intensely that the priest, his name is Eli, is like over in the corner looking at her like, is that lady drunk? Because she is like wailing and mouthing these words and just praying so intensely. So he walks up to her and says, hey, are you drunk? I don't know. sometimes I like worship up here and I'm moving my arms all around and I'm praying, and I don't know, nobody's ever asked me if I'm drunk, but if they did, I don't know what I would say. But Hanna answers. What was that laugh? That threw me off. Anyways, thanks. I'm not drunk when I'm praying up here. But Hanna says, "No, I'm not drunk. I am a woman troubled in spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but I have been pouring out my soul before the Lord. Do not regard your servant as a worthless woman, for all along I have been speaking out of my great anxiety and vexation." So then Eli is like, "Ugh. Go in peace, and hopefully the Lord answers your prayers." And so then she goes home and she continues to pray, and sure enough, she gets pregnant and she has a son, and his name is Samuel. Now, Hanna, being very faithful to her word, says, "Okay, God, well, you granted this desire of my heart, and now I promised you that I'd give him back, so, well, here we go." So I'm going to stop there for a hot second and tell you guys, when I was like 13, 14, 15, I didn't have my license yet. I wasn't driving anywhere, but I was like, I don't know, I wanted to go out with my friends and hang out, so we'd either find a ride or we'd figure things out. But it seemed like it was a normal thing to do. You know, you try to find your way around because you can't drive. But then, once I got my license and was able to drive myself around, man, I took off. I was out all the time. I was never home, and I was doing all these things, and I was taking advantage of this freedom that I had just because I could operate a vehicle. Not well, but I could operate one legally. But then, guys, if you know me, I have such bad luck with cars. Oh, holy night. Every car that I have ever touched, well, is no longer here. I'm currently driving a truck that's already been beat up so that I can't really mess with it anymore, but it's slowly dying too. And so I have had to face the harsh reality that there are times where I do not have a car because guys, it's like I went to take it to go get fixed, and they were like, the transmission's shot, which is super expensive. So then I was like, fine, I'll pay for a new transmission. But then they were like, well, good news. What? You also need new tires. Oh, okay, good news. So I need new tires and a new transmission. And so I go in. They're like, cool, we figured out what the problem was. I thought the problem was the transmission. No, the radiator fluid went into your transmission, so now you need a new radiator too. Anyways. So this feeling that I had when I was younger of not having a car, it was just kind of the way things were. But since I had already tasted that freedom of being able to drive myself around, suddenly not having my car was the greatest inconvenience of my life. It was like, I cannot go a single hour without being frustrated about the fact that I don't have my car, even though I just lived 15 and a half years of my life not being able to use one, you know? But suddenly it was like every hour is just inconvenient. And it's because I knew what it was like to have it, and then it was gone. So now I want you to picture Hannah's feeling, not me, but this Hanna, the better Hanna. I've never said that before. Whoa. Anyways, she prays with this desire for a son, and she says, I'll give him back to you, Lord. But then she has him, and she's holding him, and she keeps him while she's nursing, and she makes connections, obviously, with this son that she's just prayed and prayed and prayed for. And then she gives him back to the Lord. And I'm over here crying about my car. But to imagine her feelings giving her son back to God, I don't know. I don't know what that's like, but I know that I wouldn't respond in the way that she did. The next chapter of 1 Samuel, chapter 2, the first couple lines says, "And Hanna prayed and said," this is right after she gave her son back to the Lord and brought him to the temple to serve the priest. She said, "My heart exalts in the Lord. My horn is exalted in the Lord. My mouth derides my enemies because I rejoice in your salvation. There is none holy like the Lord, for there is none besides you. There's no rock like our God." So she reacts better than I would have because she immediately goes into this posture of, well, God, thank you. Thank you that you've been faithful to me, and here you can have my son, but thank you. And I I don't know. To me, that was a little bit confusing. And I mean, I'd like to think that I'd react that way if such a call was ever put on me, but I know that there would be some, this is really throwing me off. Okay, I'm just not going to touch it anymore. I feel like my reaction would be something along the lines of, can we renegotiate the terms of that promise I made you? Like, I said give him back for all the days of his life, but I mean, every other Sunday, like, could we figure something out? And I would negotiate, and I would try to finesse. Oh, I don't know if that's the word I was looking for. I don't think I'm going to finesse the Lord, but yeah, I probably won't do that. That's not the word I was looking for. Try to just negotiate the terms of this contract that I had already told. Sorry. That's not what's going to happen. Anyways, back to the point. I find myself consistently frustrated because of the posture of surrender that God calls us to. He says, offer sacrifices with great shouts of joy. And I shout when I sacrifice, but it is not joyfully. I wail and I say, you know what, like, fine, if this is what you want from me, then you can have it. And I'm like, here, God, you can have it. And he's like, give it to me. And yeah, just pry my fingers off of it, but you can have it. And I struggle because I don't think I understand what the point is. Because I'll share with you guys, this last year, I had been praying really, like diligently praying for certain things in my life to come to fruition. Things with school, things with my internship, things with my job, things with my family, financial things, and just really been praying. This was all last year. And it got to the point at the end of last semester, end of spring semester, everybody was leaving, and things were like really good. It seemed like God had heard my prayers and was like, you know what, Hannah? That sounds like a good idea. You're right. These things should line up. And for the first time, I was just like, wow, God, this is what it feels like to be where you want me to be, because I prayed for these things, you've given me these things, we're on the same page, things are going really great. Well, in literally 1 month, every single thing that I had previously thanked God for putting into my life kind of just like one after the other. I had several really terrible days of like, my car broke down, and then I get a call from my bank, and you know, part of me is like, the Lord provides. They're gonna say that something happened in my bank account, but then they're like, yeah, someone stole some money out of your bank account, and then it's like, oh, great. And then I get an email from Jessup, and it's like, oh, maybe things like, you know, maybe they're talking about my internship and how the hours lined up, and they're like, well, actually, you owe us more money than you thought you did. And I'm like, okay, this day just keeps getting better and better and better. And it was so discouraging because it was like, God, I prayed for all of these things, and then for why? So that you could take them away? Like, obviously it hurt when I didn't have them, but now that I've tasted kind of what that freedom and that settlement feels like, now you're asking for things back, and I'm bitter. And this has been completely unproductive because all I am is bitter. And then I continue to read that my posture should be one of joy. I'm going to read you guys a little story. It's about a businessman. This isn't my phone, so I'm going to see if I can get it to work. There we go. So it goes like this. There is a wealthy owner of a business, and he requests a meeting with you. Hesitantly, you agree to the meeting, a little skeptical, but he's the owner, so you are very much aware of the important nature of this meeting. You sit down, and he informs you that he wants you to sign over every last cent in your account. As if, you know, pretend like you have much more than you do now. So you have some money in your account, and he asks you to sign over every last cent in your account. Immediately, you tense up at the absurd request. You begin to gather your things, curtly thank him for his time, and begin to walk out the door. How could he present you with such an outrageous request? In what world would that make sense? So you begin to open the door, and you're on your way out with thoughts of switching over to a new company entirely, because why would he put you in such a situation? But he reaches out a gentle hand and he says, hey, wait a minute, you didn't let me finish. Curiously, you turn back around and decide to hear him out. He begins to explain that the request is for every single cent in your account in exchange for his entire fortune. He gives you a small glimpse at his collection, and you know that this can't be real. Crossing your arms, you ask for the catch. And with a sincere voice, he tells you that there is none. All you have to do is sign over everything you own. Additionally, he asks you to no longer try to earn anything on your own. You quit your job, you have to empty your savings, hand over everything you've worked for and you have. But he will give you access to his abundant treasure. You grow a little anxious at the thought of exposing yourself to so much risk because there's nothing that's ever been like this before. But something in you innately just knows you can't pass this up. In the biggest decision of your life, you sign over everything you have. With great joy, the owner welcomes you to his home, and there you see that the biggest decision has now become your best decision because in front of you is everything and more. And that's the reality of the call. In quite the paradox, God calls us to die in order that we might live. And he calls us to give him everything that we have in exchange for everything he has. And for some reason that strikes fear in us because we don't understand what it is that God has to offer. And it's like, hey God, I know you asked for everything, but it doesn't feel like it's going to be a really good thing because this is all that I have, and we're just filled with so much anxiety, and we're so hesitant to make that exchange. The Lord has so graciously begun to show me what it's like to see how great his treasure is, and as we begin to understand God's heart for us, we learn that his everything is actually a lot bigger than ours. And so as we begin to understand how big God's everything is, our list of everything becomes a lot smaller. Psalm 16:11, just at the end there, says, "You make known to me the path of life. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore." And that's a promise from God that says that with him there is a fullness of joy. And so that joy that Hanna has in this story, and that joy that is available to us, I know that I'm not feeling when God asks me to surrender because it makes me anxious and I want to say no. And I've told God that he can have my life, and I do believe in him and his salvation. And so I say, okay, well, I guess if that's what you want, you can have it, but I'm not happy about it. And I begin to ask myself why, and maybe you've asked yourself why. It's so hard sometimes to just be excited about what God has for you. We say like, God, you want me to follow you. You want me to give everything to you. You want me to sign my life over to you. But it's like not a ton of fun. It doesn't make me feel good all the time. And it just, quite frankly, is a lot harder than it seems like it needs to be. And I begin to ask myself, God, do you even care about my joy? Which is hard for me because it's like, God, I know that you have a plan, and I know that your plan is so much greater than my plan, and I'm excited to be a part of something that you're doing, and so I guess I'm willing to do that, but can I be joyful about it? And are you going to do anything to help me be joyful about it? The realization sits in when we realize that God does care about our joy. Our theme is abide, and you've heard me touch on it a little bit at the end of John, or chapter 15 of John, verse 11. I talked about it a couple weeks ago with you guys, that Jesus says, the reason I tell you it's so important to be with me is so that you can be joyful. The reason I'm asking you to be with me is so that your joy may be made full. And so sometimes I think we get confused, and it's like, God, you want me to be with you because you want my willingness, my hands, my readiness to work and be a part of your kingdom. God, you want me because you made me, okay, because you love me, and I guess that makes sense. But I think there's a flip side to that. Not only does God want us to come to him and to be with him because we are his kids and he loves us, but I think God also wants us to be with him because he knows that that's where we are most joyful. Does that make sense? We are most joyful when we are in the presence and the fullness of the Lord. So it's not just about God wants us to be with him because he's our father and he wants his kids back. And that is there. And that's so present in the scripture that God just wants to be with his kids. But also, God says, I'm telling you this. Listen to me. Hear me say, I want you to be with me because with me there is a fullness of joy. And if that doesn't communicate that God cares about whether or not we are full of joy, I don't know what does. And so I sit here and I say, God, okay, you want me to be joyful. How do I do that? Cool, I'm on the same page with you. I want that too, but how do we get there? And so there's this challenge that God begins to place in our lives of, hey, in order for you to be joyful about me, you pray, you hear, you say, you tell people that I am enough for you. Does it feel like that though? Does it feel like I'm actually enough for you, or are you just saying that? Because trust me, I am enough for you, but in order for me to be enough for you, I have to be bigger than the things that you might think you want. So I look at my life and all of the things that I've worked for or built up, things, good things like my education, my job, my reputation, like things that I've really worked for, things that I've been just very blessed with, like my family and my friends and where I grew up. But all of these things I look at and I place so much value in them, and God doesn't say those are bad things, but he does say, hey, are you so defensive about those things that you can't give them to me because you don't trust that I'll be more than enough if you give those to me? And I'm holding on to them saying, God, if you're asking for all of these things, are you going to leave me empty if I give them to you? But look at the position of your hands. When we hold so tightly to things, there's nothing left for me. I can't do anything productive with a closed fist. But when I say, God, here, you can have it, now my hands are open to do whatever God asks me to do. Does that make sense? My hands have now been freed up to do God's work and have the ability to go where he wants me to go, do what he wants me to do, be where he wants me to be. And I can say, God, I've given you everything, have everything, and do anything. Have everything and do anything, because now you have everything and you've filled me with more than enough than what I had before. And now that I'm full, I'm ready to go and do whatever it is that you're asking me to do. And in that pursuit, and God saying, give me more, give me more, give me more so I can pour into you so much more, comes this freedom in surrender. Surrender isn't something, and I've said this over and over again, but surrender isn't something that's supposed to make us cringe and go, yeah, I don't want to do that. Surrender is something where we say, okay, God, there's more that you want from me. That's more space. If I give that to you and surrender that to you, that's more space that you have to pour into me with something so much greater. That's exciting, isn't it? Saying, hey, God, I had this stuff in my heart that was taking up a lot of space, and you just tapped me on the shoulder, or in my case, pulled my hair, smacked me across the face a little bit to get my attention. Maybe let's stop at the tap shoulder sometimes, but hey, let me get your attention. There's something in your heart that's not the fullness of what I can give you. So hey, give that over to me, and let me show you what I can put there instead. And so as we begin to wrap our minds around the fact that God cares about our joy, we're able to finally understand a little bit more that fullness of joy doesn't come from anything that we're able to hold on to. Fullness of joy doesn't come from anything that we're able to hold on to. Fullness of joy comes from the one who holds us. If I'm being held by God, then there's no room for me to fall. And this is a God who holds us with so much love. He holds us with love. And if there's anything that I want you guys to understand tonight, it's that God cares about your joy because he loves you. And this call to surrender joyfully is just the first step in being able to say, God, let me be saturated and filled completely with this love that you're waiting to give me. God's standing there in front of you, just begging you to open up your arms a little bit so he can put something into your heart. And if we stand in this posture of fear and anxiety, Hannah's praying and she says, I'm just praying with so much anxiety and so much vexation. I'm stressed out and it just doesn't feel like there's anything that I can do about it. But then she says her joy is made complete when? Not when she has her son, but when she gives him back to the Lord and surrenders and opens her arms and says, now my posture isn't here filled with anxiety, but now God, take everything, this son that I've prayed so long for, have him. Now my posture is here and I can be held by you. We get so caught up in all of these little things that we place our identity in and we place value in, and these aren't bad things. Be excited about what God has blessed you with, but don't ever grow defensive. When God gives us things, we say thank you, but we continue to have open arms. The minute you feel your shoulders tense up and say, God, don't touch this. This is mine. That should be a little bit of a sign, because guess what? If it's that important to you that you feel like you don't want God to touch it, if it's that important to you, trust me, you want him all over it. You want him all over whatever that is. And so I know it's scary. And I know it's counterintuitive and it doesn't really make sense. But when we give those things to God and we open ourselves up to this posture, it allows him to love us more completely. And when we live from the abundant place that we are loved, we don't have to beg for scraps anymore. And when we don't have to beg for scraps anymore, we realize that it's not only can I live from this abundant place that I am loved, but I can love you with that. And I can pour out into others, and it becomes this beautiful picture of what surrendering to God looks like and saying, I have given you everything, and now you can do anything, and God will. He loves you so much that he is not content leaving you at a place of anxiety and frustration. And God will literally do anything that it takes to grab a hold of your attention, even if it means tugging at those things that we grow defensive over. So that moment of trust, that first little, I don't know if I can do this, that faith, the overwhelming freedom that comes from the Spirit of the Lord, guys, that's where the fullness of joy lives. And that's my prayer for all of you, is that you would realize, I would realize, that fullness of joy is not something we have to wait until heaven to have. Fullness of joy is something that we can have now, something that we can have here, something that we can have with each other. We have a lot of time still, so I want to jump back into this song, and we have some time, so don't feel like you have to go anywhere. And I'll come back up, but we'll have our prayer team up here ready to pray with you if you feel like there's anything, or if you're just having a really good day and want to praise God. We want to pray with you too. But as we sing this song, just take a second to remember, okay, God, I have decided to set my heart on you, and nothing's ever going to change that. And nothing's ever going to be able to take away from fullness of joy, because the fullness of joy that God grants us is protected, and it's not something that the enemy can steal.